All right, welcome to Live Life Driven. Here we are. I've got Justin in the house today. How you doing, bud?
Hey, I'm better than ever, man.
I got to apologize to our listeners. I've taken 2 weeks off podcasting.
Slacker.
Yeah, kind of. I got my own little whirlwinds of being busy, which that is definitely not an excuse. You haven't been around in town, so to do a call-in was also an excuse. From a multiple of reasons. But, the fact is I'm here, so I'm apologizing. We're back after it. I'm going to title this show, Just Getting Started. And what I mean by that is if you've got an idea or something that you need to do in your life or chase a goal or a dream or business opportunity, or maybe it's a hobby with your kids or your wife or yourself, just get started doing it.
That's right.
Don't let anything hold you back from pursuing a passion or an opportunity. And oftentimes, we've talked about it before, using my own example of starting this podcast, that it wasn't something I wanted to do, but I felt like it was a necessity. And I just started with zero experience or knowledge. I wrote a little template, and I did my first show, and here I am. We're almost at 200 shows all together.
And what's one of those things that stop people from getting started? I know for me it's fear. Fear of failure. That's one of the biggest things for me. It's not that I'm lazy. It's not that you're lazy.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about doing a podcast from afar with the cell phones. I think every week, and it just never came to fruition. It didn't have anything to do with fear.
Yeah.
Then, right? I was busier than hell.
Yeah,
and so are you, obviously, by coming over and seeing you got you got 10 different things happening at one time here right now.
you
got remodels. Yeah, you got remodels. You got one earbud in one ear. You got your phone up to the other ear. It's crazy. You got stuff going on, but everybody does. But getting started, you set out a goal, a specific time frame when you want to achieve that goal, and you get after it and you do it. And you know what? If you're successful, cool. If you have the right mindset going in, you're going to win. You're going to be successful. So, this is a great topic. Just get started at whatever. Get started at whatever you want to get started at.
Well, commit to it, chip away at it, even if it's only 5 minutes a day, depending on the project, right? Commit to it. And once you start walking down that road of commitment, it starts to build momentum and steam, and then you start spending more time, and it evolves into ultimately what you want it to be. If given the time and the patience to do it. So, that's what I want people to focus on. I think that's where the value's at. A lot of states, gosh, I'm watching the news, a lot of states are going back into COVID lockdown. I'm seeing restaurants closing back up and things like that. And, we live in this bubble up here in Montana because we're not seeing any of that. But if that's the world that you live in right now, if the world's closing in on you, you still have the opportunity to start your own thing, do your own thing, and leverage this time to your benefit. I've made, I told my wife yesterday, I have written goals every year. They're financial, they're personal, they're, assets that I want or things like that. I told her yesterday, I said, Sam, I didn't realize that this month I'm going to hit my financial goal for the year. I said, I did all my numbers yesterday. And to me, what's fascinating about that is we're coming out of COVID right now, around the world.
Right.
But I didn't let that slow me down because I stayed focused on my goals and my projects, and I got started on those things. That's why I got all these things going on when you walk over to my house. So I really want to impress upon people to get started.
Hey, I'll take a check too, by the way, personal or not. I don't care.
Venmo.
There you go.
So I want to use the balance of our time as it relates to getting started. This is something that I have suppressed for a few years. And again, I'm just going to be honest and open with the listeners today on the show. Like I said, I've been procrastinating 2 weeks getting my shows out. But I have suppressed my feelings about what's happening in our world, what's happening in our politics, what's happening in our government specifically, and in my state, my previous state of California. And it was summarized for me on many occasions, but it didn't resonate until 3 days ago. And it resonated both with my wife and myself. And I'm going to let you talk in a minute, but I want you to hear this. I heard the term once again. There's a silent majority of people out there, and the key is silent majority. There is a lot of people that have feelings about how things should be, or what they would like to see, or how they feel, but because we don't want to offend somebody, or we're fearful of what people will say, or I think in a lot of cases, and I think that this is for me, that if I post something, I don't want to get in an argument with everybody on Facebook or Instagram or on the phone. I don't want people to dislike me. So I am part of that silent majority. And by the way, I've got an opinion, right? I'm a business leader. I'm successful. I have a family, and I have an opinion. But this is the point that I wanted to make, why I'm bringing this up. And I think that this will resonate with you, Justin. I was driving to Deer Creek, Montana, which is 3 hours away. And I was in the middle of nowhere. And I see behind me flashing lights, blue and reds, full code, right? And he's back there a long ways, and this guy is flying. And we're talking open roads, a little bit of traffic, but he's swerving in and out of cars, bearing in on me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's flying. I pull over. He goes by. I see 10 miles in the distance, blue and red lights coming north. I'm like, wow, there's another one. And they're both bearing east, they're turning onto an eastern route. And I'm like, wow, there's two guys full on, code red. If you don't know what that, maybe you can describe it better, but these guys are doing 100 plus miles an hour in and out of cars. I saw 10 patrol cars total going the same direction, all as fast as they can go in and out of traffic. And what really hit me, Justin, is I'm going, I don't know where these guys are going, but they're trying to get to an emergency. They're putting their life on the line on this open highway, swerving in and out of vehicles to get to whoever's called on them to do their job. And, we see these little snippets of what happens with the police or the firemen or government and different things, and we judge their entire life on those little snippets. We don't see the 20 minutes that it took that patrol officer to come down the highway doing over 100 mile an hour, putting his life on the line to get to an emergency. Maybe it was a fire. Maybe it was a shooting. Maybe it's a domestic. Who knows what it was? But they're putting their lives on the line to get there as fast as they can. And that really, really hit home for me on that long drive. I had nothing to do but think. I thought, oh my gosh, this poor country that we live in, people are not seeing the reality of what our people in blue are doing to save and protect. And yeah, there's maybe a couple bad apples out there. I'm not disputing that, but that is not the majority. So for me, my wife and I have made a commitment that we're going to stop being part of that silent majority. And that's what I want to spend a few minutes talking about. And I know you got an opinion on this, and I want to hear what your thoughts are about my story and just what you're noticing.
Well, yeah, on your story, people don't get to see all the different times where police officers have to act accordingly to the situation or the response that they're expected to give in emergency situations. And a lot of those times we do have to drive fast. That's why our vehicles are equipped with, the red light forward facing and the emergency equipment and the sirens and everything like that. And we have to drive like idiots sometimes, controlled idiots.
Well, look, you're putting it on yourself, but I don't think that you're driving like an idiot. I think you're getting to where you need to be.
What I'm saying is, going those speeds and everything like that, in and out of traffic, people panic. They see the red light, they hear the siren, they think, oh my gosh, I'm getting stopped, and supposed to pull over to the right, they pull over to the left, they'll turn in front of you, they won't, merge out of your way or anything like that. So there are things, we got to run off the road. We got to get to where we're going because there's an emergency. We can't drive that way unless we're going to an emergency.
Sure.
And that's set by, policy and procedure and then also law. But, the silent majority thing, has got to end, because the silent majority thing, while everybody's being silent and all these people who are supportive of the police department, supportive of the fire department, supportive of their city, and wanting to live peaceably in their homes or at the park or going to and from work, that's being decimated right now.
Yeah.
It's being taken away from them. And there's nothing that's being done. They think, hey, come voting time, we're going to vote, and, we're in support of the police and this and that, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? They're losing all kinds of protections right now as they don't speak.
Yeah, those protections are being lost because they're being voted in right now.
There's legislation right now that are taking away some of the tools that we've been trained on, some of the tools that we've been given to save lives, to help lives, to prevent having to use lethal force. They're taking away less lethal options that, in turn, you take away less lethal options. What options do you have left? You can turn away and run away, or you can use lethal options, right? And that's why less lethal options were created while they were perfected, while they were trained. Yeah, there are bad officers out there that have used them inappropriately at times, but the majority are not. And this all stemmed up, the whole thing that went across the nation, that went across the state of California when this thing happened in Minneapolis about the carotid restraint. That wasn't a carotid restraint that we saw in the video. That had nothing to do with the carotid restraint that we saw in the video. The clip that I saw in the video that happened in Minneapolis, a guy was kneeling on another guy's neck. Yeah. That is not the carotid restraint. And immediately within, 2 weeks after that aired, now all of a sudden it's illegal to apply the carotid restraint. Let me tell you something. The carotid restraint is the number one 100%. It's the only thing that's 100% that works every single time if applied correctly.
Yeah.
A bad place shot with your handgun when using lethal force, a guy can still go, if armed, can still go and shoot many people, right? Because a bad place shot might not render them incapacitated.
Especially with adrenaline.
A carotid restraint, incapacitated.
Yeah.
You restrict the oxygenated blood to the brain. You lose consciousness. In that time of loss of consciousness, you place them in handcuffs. Done.
So I don't want to get too far past our objective on our shows, which is to help people be driven, but I think education is important so that we can make them informed decisions about our own lives. I'm sure that there's a million people that will argue your point about the carotid restraint.
And there'll be a million people who argue against it, and I understand that. Yeah. Everybody has their thought process. I only have my 20-plus years of experience. I've seen it. Again, yeah, our shows have been, 20 minutes, 25 minutes? I could talk to you about this for 5 hours. It would be the longest podcast ever recorded. But the bottom line is this. The people who want to see the police govern bad people, law violators, so that the good people can go for a walk in the park at night with their kids or their dogs, or let their kids go out and ride their bicycles and all that type of stuff. That is changing right now.
Yeah.
That is going away right now because the silent majority is doing what we do, right? I'm silent. I don't, I got rid of Facebook. The only thing on Instagram is trying to promote my business. I'm not involved in Instagram anymore. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see the media because what the media puts out there is shit.
So, and you're right. And I've noticed that I've been spending more time on social media than what's positive for my input. I want to turn this into a driven conversation based on the silent majority. And here's how I want to do that. I love the line that Andy Frisella talks about, and if you listen to the show, I've mentioned him on several occasions because we're big fans of 75 Hard, which is his reformation plan. I love Andy's line about know your truth.
That's right.
Your truth is your truth. And so let me give you a live example of that because I think it's important to understand what that means to me and what it could mean to you. When we look at society and you see on the news racism, okay? I know my truth. I grew up in a household that was racist as a child. And when I left that house, I left that racism. And granted, my parents grew out of it. My dad has passed away, and he had a number of reasons for being the person he was. And, God forgive him.